Okay guys, so the next step is installing the piston and rod assemblies into the bore. Now before you do that, one thing that I would recommend you do is take some WD-40 spray lube or something of that nature. And I really like this gel lubricant that WD-40 has. It works really well. It's not nearly as runny as regular WD-40, so it kind of sticks to the bore in here a little bit. Even though we've final washed this block, I have some white towels here, and I want you to notice what happens here. I'm going to wipe these bores out, and you see all that stuff on that bore? Now that is after it was washed with soap and water. That's literally from the block just sitting around in the shop, and this area is pretty clean. We don't do any cleaning in this. This is where we do our assembly, so we keep it clean. We don't have any dirty engines in here. And so even sitting around for a day or two, you're going to get that residual stuff on the block. So it's always a good idea to take, and we want to wipe these bores out until we get nothing on that bore except just clean lubricant, no black stuff. So I'll spend probably 15 or 20 minutes wiping these bores out until I get them totally clean. I'm not going to do that on camera, obviously, but I'll get that done, and then once I get those clean, once you get the bores totally clean, we can start installing our piston and rod assemblies. This is what we've gotten it to. This is what you want to see. This is where we started with that bore when we started wiping it out, and this is what we have. You want to get that bore to where you got nothing on your paper towel except clean WD-40. We've done that to all the cylinders now. Now we can start looking at our clearances on our pistons and our cylinder wall. Okay, so checking piston to cylinder wall clearance, what you want to do is you want to take and mic your piston. Now the way that you mic a piston for the bore is you're going to go opposite the piston pin, perpendicular to the pin, right here on the skirt. So we want to measure it right here. So we're going to take our micrometer and we're going to measure right on the skirt area of this piston, and its bore size is 3905. So my mic reading is 3903, and my bore size is 3905 and a half, something like that. But just to verify, I'm going to go ahead and set my bore gauge up and check the difference here. So I've zeroed out my dial indicator, my bore gauge based on the piston size, and then we're going to put this in. And we just want to compare the bore size. And it looks like I have a 2.5 thousandths difference. This is a stock cast piston. 2 to 2.5 clearance is really good. When I bore these, I put about an extra 5-10 thousandths into the bore, just for a little extra insurance, especially off-road stuff. We have about 2.5 thousandths clearance, which is perfect. So we just want to do that to make sure that we have the right piston and bore combination. We don't have any issues with it. Okay, so now we can start looking at putting these in. I ordered a ring compressor from Total Seal. These are the best ring compressors in the history of the universe, and it is a fixed cone. And if you look at the size on it, it's 3.905, which is exactly what our bore is. This is a tapered cone. The big part of the cone goes up. They have those band style ring compressors. Trust me guys, those are garbage, man. You don't want to use those. So we want to put a little lube on this. You don't really want to put this in dry. So we want to put some lube on the bore. You might say, WD-40, what the heck are you putting that on the bore for? Use oil. You'd be surprised to find out, and I've talked about this before, that Total Seal, the biggest manufacturer's rings in the world, they recommend that you use WD-40 on the bore when you put these together. It's one of those things. You don't need lots of lube on this. You definitely don't want to use a thick layer of assembly lube on the rings, because the rings have to cut through that, and that can glaze the cylinder wall. These cylinder walls are going to get oil almost instantly when I fire that engine up, because the crank in the first second or two is going to throw a bunch of oil up on the cylinder wall. We do want to put some oil on the bearing here. So we want to make sure that we get, and you can use assembly lube on the bearings, but again, I don't do it. We have a couple of tools here. We have the ring compressor. So I will take just a small amount of oil on the skirt here. You can use WD-40 if you want. Just something to make sure it's not dry. And then we want to take these ring end gaps. See how those two gaps are in the same spot there, right? We want to leave the bottom gap there, and we want to take the top gap here, and we want to go all the way over to the other side of the piston, right? We want them staggered. We don't want them lined up. Then we take our ring compressor, and I will just take and put the piston, make sure the big side of the cone is up, and I get the piston started in the ring compressor. And you kind of got to work the rings around in there. And once you get the ring compressor onto the piston, it's pretty straightforward. I like to get the ring compressor in the piston just like that. Get it ready to go. And we also have to have something down here to protect the crank with. So we're going to use what we call a journal protector. They call it a journal protector because it protects the journal. This one, when I have studs down here, so what it does is it just, when you get the piston in, this kind of fits over there, and this is going to kind of allow me to guide around the crank journal, and it's going to protect the crank journal from being damaged. If you put these hardened steel rod bolts in there and you jam it into the crank journal, you're going to have a big problem. You're going to damage your crank. So we're going to take our piston. Remember, the arrow on the piston goes to the front of the engine, and on the Jeep, the bearing notch, away from the cam I should say. So we're just going to go ahead and put these in like so. We're just going to get our piston and rod assembly started in there. And then once you get that in, your compressor's on there, push your compressor flush down against it, and make sure that your crank over here is at bottom dead center. So if we come around to the back side here, you can see that our rod is in there. What we want to do is we're going to just put our journal protector on there, and you got to kind of spread this apart to grab both those studs. And once we get the journal protector on both of the studs, then we can just tap this piston and rod assembly in. So you want to take a soft hammer, don't use the steel portion of it, hang on to your journal protector, and we just gently, it's as simple as that. That ring compressor works great. And we bring this down over the crank journal. We've protected our journal, and we put our tack cap on and torque it, and we're in business. Make sure that your notch on your cap right here goes to the same side as the notch on the connecting rod, right? Which in this case is going to be over here. The notches are going to be down here. Then we're going to torque our rod to spec, and once we get it torqued, we got to check a couple of things. We want to make sure that we have rod side clearance, so we're going to take feeler gauges, and I can see the movement here. I got good rod side clearance. We want to take our feeler gauges in here and check this. The rod has to have adequate clearance down here from side to side. It's called rod side clearance, and we want to check that. The spec on this, we want to be somewhere between 10 and 20 thousandths on this one, so we'll use 10 to start with. And you just put that right in there, push the rod over, and 10 goes in there real nice. Okay, so as long as 10 goes in there, you're good. And then on the big side, we'll take a 20 thousandths and put it in there. And 20 thousandths is not going, so 10 goes, 20 doesn't. So it's somewhere between 10 and 20, and that's all you have to have. And you can feel this too. You can see that moving. It's got plenty of rod side clearance. So once you get that done, you're just going to continue. We're going to go to the next one down the line, and we want to put the next one at bottom dead center as well. You want to make sure this rotates without any binding. You don't have any problems with it. And this one feels really good. And then we'll just put the next one at bottom dead center right here, and we'll go in with our next piston. I'm going to do all 6 of them. I won't do it on camera to insult your intelligence. Like I've said so many times before, if you really want to see all 6 of these go in, just rewind the video and watch me do that 6 times. I mean, it's the same thing. All right, guys, now that we've got all the pistons in, one of the things you need to make sure once you get your rods torqued is that the engine still rotates without any kind of binding. There's going to be some resistance on it, but it shouldn't have a tight place and a loose place. It shouldn't be binding. This one feels really nice, turns beautifully, all our clearances are right, and basically that's the short block assembly.